Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Randy Wolfe. Hope you're having a great day. So, I'm talking today about negotiations, why it's so important to understand how to properly negotiate when you are trying to buy an off market deal. Really, any deal, I guess, for that matter, but particularly off market deals. So, one of the things that I would say is probably the most over, no, underrated, the most underrated things when it comes to negotiating is asking good questions. You want to ask really good questions. And the reason that you want to do this is because when you're talking to somebody and you're trying to buy their property, you need to understand exactly what is going on. Why are they selling their property? I mean, I know for us as real estate investors, you gotta realize most people, it's not going to be a fit for them to sell us their property. Why would that be, you think? Well, because they could potentially list it on the market, almost always, not potentially, almost always list it on the market and probably get a better price point. All right, so why would they want to sell us their property and get less money? And so you need to dig into that why, understand the why. And why, no pun intended, why that's so important is because then you will have a better understanding of how to serve their need. So let me give you a couple examples here. So let's take a person who is interested in selling you their property, and we already know that as investors we're going to buy the property at a discount, and they're okay with that. That's why they're talking to you, and they are actually in a position to where they actually need to close on another property, but they are not going to be closing for another 20 days or so, and they need to leave for their job, and they've got all these things going on, and they need a place to stay after they buy that property, because they're in a weird situation where they're going to buy the property, but they can't get all their stuff shipped to where they're going to be moving to, and they just basically in a position where they need somewhere to stay in between when they sell this property and when they buy that property and can ultimately move into it. I think that's probably kind of confusing what I just explained, but basically the gist of it is after they sell their property, they need to stay in that property. And that's their main thing that they're really concerned about. And their property needs some work and obviously those sort of things. And so you're able to come in and ask questions and find out that that is a big concern that they have. Where are they going to stay? And so you're able to negotiate with them to where you're going to buy the property at a price point that makes sense for you. Like again, let's just kind of take price off the table. But you're going to be able to solve their problem. And their problem is they're really concerned about having a place to stay after they sell their property, but before they move into the new property. And that's it. And so now all of a sudden, maybe there's someone else that's willing to buy their property, but they're not offering that. But you listen carefully and actually pick up, hey, this is a big issue for them. Let me just see if I can't solve this problem for them. Another example of it is you have someone, we'll use that same scenario, someone's moving away and they're just really anxious and just really the whole idea of having to move. They've been living there for many, many years and packing up all this stuff, they're just stressed out. I mean, anyone that's been an investor long enough, we've run into these situations where people are just stressed out about the idea of having to pack all this stuff up. Maybe they inherited the property. Could be a variety of different things, but they're just keep like putting that off because that's just so heavy. And you're listening and you're hearing this, and all of a sudden you say, hey, why don't I just help you? Like I can pay to have all of your things packed up. You can be there, pick out, make sure everything goes accordingly. If there's anything you want to grab it, then we can handle getting everything packed up for you, and we can handle actually moving it to this storage unit or this location. Would that help any? Now all of a sudden you are solving this big problem to them that they have. And so that's an example of negotiating and really listening to what people have to say. And in order to do that, you've got to ask the right type of questions. And so that's the first advice I'm going to give when negotiating is you need to ask really good questions where you can dig down into uncovering their pain point, uncovering why they're talking to you versus listing it on the market with an agent, that sort of thing. The next thing is the second thing is, and this is kind of like goes along with the first thing, is typically people are more, when they think about negotiating, they think a lot about what they're going to say, How do I close this person? How do I, what words should I use? So much of negotiating, courses and things like that talk about kind of what to say. And I will say that's very important. The words you use, the pace that you say words, the words that maybe you kind of pause on, that stuff is important. Tonality, matching, mirroring people, all that stuff is very important. So I'm not saying it's not. And that's maybe for another video. But the big thing you can do as a new or aspiring investor that's not really comfortable negotiating or still kind of getting comfortable learning how to do that is simply kind of part of my first piece of advice is ask questions and get them talking. The more they talk, the better. The less you talk, the better. So again, how do you do that? Kind of goes back to part one is you're going to ask really open-ended questions so that you can gather information about their why, about their problem, what's going on in the house. You're going to get them explaining things to you, because here's another thing that happens. When you're asking really open-ended questions, it's going to get them talking more, and the more that they're talking, the more they start to get more comfortable with you. You're someone, if you're talking to them on the phone, they've ever met you, you're a stranger. They don't know who you are. And so obviously, when you're not sitting face to face with somebody, there's this level of, do I trust this dude? I don't know if I trust this guy. And then the second question is, do I like this guy? Do I like this guy or girl? Is this someone I like that I would want to do business with? And the thing is, if you let people talk, that gets them more comfortable. They start to open up with you. That builds trust. And then also too, it ends up, you build some rapport, because you can take certain things and be honest. I'm not saying don't be dishonest, but as you're asking them questions, there's hopefully going to be some things that you find common ground on. If they like to enjoy doing something that, let's say, that you enjoy doing, if they love fishing, and all of a sudden, like, you're asking them open, why are you selling your house? Oh, I'm going to move to this area. It's close to the lake. Oh, really cool. You like the lake? Like, do you do any fishing? Oh, I love fishing. And you love fishing too. Now you can kind of have a minute to where you can discuss fishing a little bit. This doesn't need to be this long, drawn out thing, but it's a way you can build some common ground. And you're not gonna be able to do that if you're not asking questions. Okay. There's also, I will say, a certain point where as you're controlling that conversation in a non-threatening way, you're asking pointed questions. You need to bring it back to the purpose of the conversation, because another thing that people respect is if you're someone that's busy and they know you're a professional. You're going to kind of bring things back to the purpose of the conversation, which is to see if you can help them sell their house. So there's a happy balance of asking good questions, figuring out their pain points, understanding why they're trying to sell, being able to let them talk a good bit while also controlling the conversation to ultimately lead it to whether or not it makes sense for them to sell you their property. So there's more negotiating strategies that you can obviously learn, and this is just a short video to kind of talk about those two things. Asking really good questions is going to help you tremendously when you negotiate. As always, I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.